We knew with 103 state parks, we knew that at some point we were going to have to combine some. So that's exactly what we ended up doing today. We started out and we mapped out about 4 state parks in the southeast Michigan area that we wanted to hit, that we thought we could do, in a relatively short amount of time. In the end, as we were traveling to one of them, we discovered that there was a 5th state park just down the road that we could also add to it. So we decided, why not? We could add a 5th park to our travel adventures.
Yeah, we were looking at what could we knock out in kind of a day-long adventure. And when we got to that one park and we said, well, there's a 5th one that's not on our list for the day, but it's only 6 miles away, we said, why not? I think that really illustrates something about the parks in Southeast Michigan, which is they are all relatively close together. And so that's kind of nice. I suppose if you go to do something at one of the parks and it's really busy or it's crowded, go find another one and hopefully that has a little more space for you, because they have a lot of things that are similar. There's hiking trails, there's things to do on different lakes, there's fishing, there's some of them have beaches. There's just a lot of things that are very similar, even though they all present them in their own way.
Welcome to the Bald Mountain State Recreation Area.
The Bald Mountain Recreation Area is in Oakland County in southeast Michigan, an area that most people would consider to be quite urban. We're actually just a few miles away from the Palace of Auburn Hills, which is where the Detroit Pistons used to play, and now they're going to be moving down into downtown Detroit. But in northern Oakland County, there's still a number of rural sections. In fact, there's a number of dirt roads still in northern Oakland County, and we found that the main entrance to Bald Mountain was still closed for the season, so we ended up taking one of the side entrances through a dirt road and ended up a parking area here near one of the trailheads.
Yeah, Bald Mountain is actually a quite extensive recreation area. It's broken into 3 separate parts, and so depending on the activities that you want to do, you can go to each area. There's one section that's more of a day use for picnicking, beach, fishing, that kind of thing. Where we're currently at is more of a mountain biking and hiking trail area, in the winter cross-country skiing. There's a 3rd area that's, again, another area for hiking, biking, cross-country skiing. And there's a shooting range. So you might hear some shots going on in the background because there's a section dedicated to that as well. So it's quite amazing what you can find tucked in here kind of in the middle of this urban area, because this is a very massive park, actually.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things, too, is that these trails are open for snowmobiling. I believe the sign said it had to have at least 4 inches of snow, but once there's enough snow on the ground, they'll let them run snowmobiles in this area as well.
But there's no snow. I'm so excited. The sun is out. I'm in a t-shirt. This is amazing.
So as we're coming down this hill on a trail, it reminded me that the state said that this park has some of the steepest terrain in southeast Michigan. So
yes, steepest hills and most rugged terrain
in southeast
Michigan. I'm not exactly sure what they're comparing that to.
So for a lot of you, rugged and steep would have a very different meaning than what you're going to find here at Bald Mountain.
Yeah, if you're in Colorado, it's a hill. We'll just go with it's a hill. Behind me is Lower Trout Lake, and if you can see, probably not really on the camera, there's a little white dot out there, and it's a huge swan. I'm not used to swans. Ari says there's swans all over Oakland County, but he's really cool. You probably can't see him though. But anyways, Lower Trout Lake it's part of the area that's currently closed. It's not open until April 15th. But once it does open, you've got options for a fishing pier, a boat launch, and then there's a beach that you can go to. So unfortunately, I will not be getting a suntan at the beach today because it's closed. But at least we can enjoy, some of the nature here. And this is a pretty good sized lake. So I guess if you come out here in the summer, you have to check it out.
There's several different parking areas for trailheads here at Bald Mountain. And because there's a shooting range, actually one of the parking areas takes you to a trailhead that's just about not quite a half a mile connector to the larger trail system. But it runs you right along the fence line of the shooting range. So be ready for some loud noises.
These are really really nice trails. I kind of wish I'd had this last summer when I was training for my marathon. They're wide, they're pretty flat, nice ground. Don't seem to be a lot of roots to trip over. We obviously didn't do the whole 15 miles of it, so I can't tell you for sure. But yeah, I think this is a really nice trail system. I wish we had something closer to home because the trails we have closer to home are nice, but they end up making you just run like 3-mile loops over and over again. And this is like, what, I think they said 15-mile trail system. So just a lot of good options out here for walking, biking, running, taking your dog for a walk, whatever.
Welcome to the Ortonville Recreation Area.
We're currently visiting Ortonville State Recreation Area, and similar to some of the other parks in the Southeast Michigan area, this one's, it's very large but broken up into sections. It's just not all contiguous land like you're used to in most state parks. In this particular case, it's 5,400 acres, but the part that we're currently standing at is the day use area next to Big Fish Lake. And it's got lots of picnic areas, it's got a boat launch, some playground area, and you know, it's kind of more of kind of a traditional day use state park area. There's also at this recreation area at Ortonville some equestrian areas, which we'll show you in a little bit, as well as just some other additional hiking trails and another shooting range. That seems to be a thing around this area. I don't think we're going to get to see, unfortunately, all of it today on this trip. We'll have to come back some other time because there's just, in 5,400 acres, that's a lot to see. But we just want to give you a little bit of a taste of what there is to see and do here so that, you know, maybe you can come back and check it out for yourself. Here at the Big Fish Lake area, you've got the beach and the state park on one side, and then you've got private houses on the other side. What we did notice is there's large signs saying that the beach is, and the water, I guess, is not tested, and there's no beach guard. So I guess it's swim at your own risk. I don't really actually see a beach. It's more just picnic areas, people on blankets laying in the grass. There are some grills around, so you definitely can come out in here and hang for the day. I just don't know whether it's a place that you can get into the water. So check that out if that's something you're interested in. But I have to imagine if there's people that live on this lake that they're probably in the water, so it's safe. But I guess I don't want to say that for sure. So far today, it's strike 2 on laying on the beach and getting a suntan.
One nice thing about Michigan is that some of our state parks are equestrian campgrounds. So if you have horses and you want to bring in your camper and your horse trailer and go ride on some of the trails that they've got, and Ortonville Recreation Area is one of those that has an equestrian campground.
There are approximately 21 sites here. It is definitely a rustic campground. All you get is technically a campsite, it's a piece of grass here in this case, a picnic table, a fire ring, a vault toilet, and then a hand pump for water. So it's definitely extremely rustic. And it doesn't appear to be today that there's anybody camping. There are just here people using it as a day use to take their horses out on the trails. But and it's not 100% limited to people who are camping with their horses. I mean, if you needed a spot, you could stay here, but you just have to understand that it is completely rustic. And so it's, you know, pay by the night, drop your money in the envelope kind of camping. But if you just need a quick spot for a boondocking night, if you're traveling through the area, that it does work. We have stayed at these before, but we try to leave them available for the equestrians just because there are very few and far between places that they can take their horses. So you always just want to be
you want to be courteous of
yeah.
them. Yeah, it's kind of a, you know,
Thank
be
you
nice.
for filling in the words that I couldn't come up with.
You know, if you don't need an equestrian area, then leave it for people who really do. But if it's not busy, then yeah, we've stayed at them overnight occasionally.
They're usually pretty nice because they are quiet. There aren't usually a whole lot of people there, and plus it's fun to see horses. And you just have to be careful when you're out on the trails because they are shared trails. So the horses obviously have the right of way in that case. So you just want to be mindful of that. But yeah, they're just sort of a nice and different touch than something else that Michigan has to offer. Welcome to Metamora-Hadley State Recreation Area.
When you look at the map and the acreage for Metamora-Hadley Recreation Area, it's a state park.
This is a state park.
Some recreation areas are called state parks here in Michigan. It is one of the smaller ones, at least when you look at it kind of by the numbers. It's only a little over 700 acres. 80 acres of that is a lake, but it actually offers quite a bit for people to do.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when we got here. There's a pretty good sized campground, about what 200 and some spots, 2 separate loops. So depending on where you want to camp, they're definitely packed in. There's like very little to no foliage in between, all packed in, but that's how they're able to get 200 and some spots in there. But there's a beach, there's a camp store where you can get supplies. We're standing here in what looks to be apparently a boat rental, canoe rental area, so that you can get some kayaks and take them out on the lake. And just sort of like a day use area. So even though it's not that big, there does seem to be quite a bit here, I guess.
Yeah, I have to admit, when we first looked it up and it was, oh, it's going to be just a real small thing, maybe not a lot to do there. There's hiking trails here. We forgot to mention that. But, you know, don't judge something based on just what your initial look at it takes in based on what you might see on a website, or, you know, when you're looking at it by the numbers. Take into consideration what might be there. And in this case, like you said, the campsites are really close together. So,
although we're finding that at most of the state parks, I think that
in season, if this place was busy, I could see it being pretty packed in. And we're here in early April, and there's actually quite a few people using the campground already.
Yeah, I was super surprised. We pulled in and I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually people here. But I think we've had such a long winter that people have just got cabin fever. And like the first weekend that it was 60 degrees, everybody's out camping because, I don't know, if they're like me, you're just so cooped up or done being cooped up and want to get outside. So I'm really excited to see that there's a lot of people out here. We've mentioned in quite a few of our earlier videos that most of the state parks have bathroom facilities, and they're usually really nice facilities. Unfortunately, because we kept camping in the winter, they were all closed. So we're finally excited to be at a state park where the bathrooms are open, and we want to be able to show you what they look like. I think, as we've said before, most of them feature both a men's and women's restroom area, as well as a bank of shower stalls. They're individual stalls, unisex, so whoever happens to be waiting can use them. And in this case, and I think at most all of them, there is a separate handicap bathroom as well, which is it's ADA accessible, it's large, you can get a wheelchair in there, and that's obviously a nice feature so that anybody can go camping. We're going swimming.
I don't think you're actually going swimming today. It's going to be kind of cold in that water still.
But I was going to lay on the beach. Oh, well, now it's wet, so now I want to lay on the beach. Dang it, strike 3, I'm laying on the beach today.
Welcome to the Holly Recreation Area. I don't know exactly how to describe the Holly Recreation Area. Some adjectives that come to mind are large and confusing, at least on the initial reaction to seeing this place.
Yeah, as the navigator, I'm trying to follow the map, and well, let's see, the DNR website gives you 2 variations of the map. The first one is more just a Google Earth style map, that is less than helpful. And then there's a button that says download map. Well, if you click on the download map, you get the actual like state park map that gives all of the legends and the signatures and all the things that actually tell you what is in the park. And I didn't realize that. So I spent the whole time trying to figure out where we were based on the little like Google Earth map. And that was totally useless. So once I figured out that I could get the actual state park map, that changed things. And so now we know where we are. But yeah, confusing definitely comes to mind because I had heard about this park. I knew it was big. I knew there was a lot here, but it's very chunky and disorienting and disorganized. And so unless you really have an idea where you're going and what you're doing as a first timer, I was kind of lost.
Well, and we're in the campground, what we think is the campground.
We think there's only one. We're not really sure yet.
And it seems like a nice campground. I mean, the sites all seem to be paved. There's quite a bit of privacy on a number of the sites. Some are a little more open, but that's okay if you happen to be camping with another, couple of people and you want to be together. That's fine. It's good to have those options. But a lot of them are kind of tucked into some trees, and so you do have some privacy, I think, especially once the leaves start to grow in on the trees. You're going to find that. But it's 8,000 acres?
Yeah, which is, again, why it makes it a little bit confusing because there's a lot going on here.
And there is a lot going on here. And part of it actually extends across I-75, which over there is mostly just kind of like wildlife managed area. And there's a radio-controlled airplane field that you can use over there. On this side of the freeway, you've got the campground. You have what? You looked up all this.
There's campground, 3 lakes, a disc golf course, a lot of different trails. Oh, apparently there's a splash pad. It doesn't open until after Memorial Day, so maybe we'll have to take a trip back, but that's something new that they've added. It's just a lot of land, I guess. That's kind of what we learned.
And there's a number of places you drive in on sort of the dirt roads that get you to the many places within the Hadley Recreation Area. There's little pull-offs. A lot of people were just pulled off and checking out trails and things. So it's nice that there's this much undeveloped land, particularly in northern Oakland County, which is not what you would expect. It's just a little overwhelming, I think, when you first pull in here for the first time and you're like, where are we? What can we do here? And how do we get to the things that we want to do?
Well, and we just kind of not that we stumbled on it. We were following Google Maps, but all of a sudden it says you have arrived, and we're literally on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. There haven't been any signs. There's no markers. There's no nothing. Well, what we realized was we are in a section of the land, part of those 8,000 acres, and one of more of the wildlife managed areas. And we drove another couple hundred feet, and sure enough, there was a little pullout where there might have been a trail that you could walk to. But there was no official state park sign. There was no headquarters. I think if you come in from a different direction, you would end up in that situation. But the direction that we came from, you literally just end up in the park without even realizing it.
Yeah, and, I guess I wouldn't say that that's a reason not to come here. I mean, I think there's a lot to do here.
Oh,
there's a lot of opportunity for different things. It's just definitely a park where you want to research it a little bit more and learn everything you can about what you want to do, so you know where you need to be and when you need to be there and how you get from one place to the other within all these 8,000 acres of land. And there are numerous trails here in the whole recreation area. So there's hiking, there's biking. In the wintertime, some of them allow snowmobiling. There's fishing here as well, right?
Yeah, there's a good sized lake with a boat launch. So if you're a fisherman, then here's another option for you. Here at the Hadley Recreation Area, the campground we've discovered is all paved sites, which is really nice. And what appears to be the electric boxes are fairly close to the sites. There's one per spot, so you're not sharing with anybody. So that's also nice. You don't have to worry about somebody tripping this breaker on you. They have a fire pit and a picnic table. And I think that's just really nice. So I think this is definitely one of, I guess, even though we aren't actually camping here, this would be a place that I would come back to because I think it's a really well set up campground.
One nice thing about having paved sites at a campground like this is they tend to be more level for when you're trying to set up your rig. Now, because of the terrain around here, there is some slope. And so what you're going to find is, even though it's paved, some of the sites have a little more slope to them. So I think that's really going to matter how long your rig is in terms of how much leveling you're going to have to do once you get here. Once you are in the sites, you will find that there is 30 amp and 20 amp electric available. The power poles all seem to be near the rear of the site. One of the things I noticed is they all seem to have been here quite a while. So as we always recommend, make sure you bring your tester and your surge suppressor and your electric power protector and whatever else it is that you've invested in to make sure your rig doesn't get fried, and make sure you're using it when you're here at this park. The Hadley Recreation Area actually has 3 lakes. There's McGinnis Lake, which is near the campground that we were at. Then there's also Heron Lake and Valley Lake. And there's different things to do at each one, right?
Right. Up at McGinnis, it's mostly just kind of within the campground boundaries, so not really a whole lot to do there. Heron Lake has the big beach and a boat launch, so that's where we're currently at. And yeah, it looks to be a really nice sized beach, actually, so that looks cool. No lifeguard, but you can definitely swim here. And then at Valley Lake is another boat launch and just some more recreation areas, at least according to the map. There is some picnic areas, the modern cabins, and the disc golf is located down by that section.
Is this your version of laying on the beach?
I finally found my beach. It's about as close as I'm going to get in April. I mean, it's a beach. There's water. There's sun. It's all you really need. This could not end well. Whee! Whoa! Dude. Oh, Lord. Well, this is really not going to end well.
Welcome
To Seven Lakes State Park.
Seven Lakes State Park is certainly not the size that a place like the Hadley Recreation Area is, because Hadley was like 8,000 acres and Seven Lakes State Park is about 1,400 acres.
Yeah.
But whereas the Hadley Recreation Area was scattered all over the place, Seven Lakes is really sort of compacted together. It's all contiguous and it's all connected. And there's a lot of different things to do here.
Yeah, for its size, it's actually got quite a bit. It's got, well, It says 7 lakes. We really only counted 6, but I think there's some other little bodies of water.
There's some little.
We're going to count them. They're all packed in together. It makes one.
Well, there's little unnamed ones all over this place. So maybe, together they make one big lake.
But as far as some of the features here of what to do, you've got a campground, you've got multiple picnic shelters, lots of picnic tables. While we're here today, we're seeing multiple groups out here having family reunions, picnics of some kind. So it's clearly a well-used park, lots of people on bikes. There's horseshoe pits, there's swing sets, there's a playground, there's a beach, there's a couple of different lakes have boat launches. So that's an option on multiple of the lakes here in the park. But yeah, I think there's actually quite a bit to do here.
It does seem like it's a well-used park, and I would have to say this is probably the worst in terms of the status of its facilities. And I don't say worst as in it's really bad, but it just seems like it's well-used and could use some sprucing up. The facility, you know, the bathroom facilities and things behind us, and just the way the road is just in probably one of the worst conditions I've seen in any state park for some reason. And maybe it's just because of the use that it gets.
It kind of, to me, gives the impression of more of a county park than a state park, at least from the ones that we're used to visiting. It does definitely use like it could be in repair. The paint is falling off the buildings, and just the amenities in general just feel run down. And maybe that's because they are well used. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people here today.
Well, and we did our interview with Keith Cray, who was the former Department of Natural Resources director, and I think he commented there was at least a $200 million backlog in maintenance, and this is probably what he's talking about, is these kinds of things that need to be taken care of and maintained so that everybody can continue to enjoy these parks for years and years.
We mentioned that there's a campground here, but unfortunately the gate was down, and we looked at the map thinking maybe we could walk in, and it was way too far. So unfortunately, we're not going to get to show you what the campground has to offer here, but there's, I think, 79 sites, so it's a smaller campground, but it does have, you know, electrical hookup, and I guess we'll just have to maybe find a picture of it online.
One thing I noticed, and you noticed on the map and information that the park provides, is that there's only 79 campsites, but one thing I thought was cool is it has its own beach for one of the lakes, and that beach is only for people who are camping. So that's kind of a nice feature that you don't always see at one of these state parks.
No, I think it's partly designed because the campground is way off by itself in a separate part of the park. So it would be a long hike or drive to get from the campground to the main beach. So it is kind of nice that they provide their own little private beach for them.
That is something I have noticed because we talked to each other about this, and we were at the Holly Recreation Area, and I've noticed it here at Seven Lakes too. And maybe it's just this area, the way the parks are laid out, but you're going to drive to a lot of things. If you are at one of the campgrounds or you're at one of the activities, if you want to go do something else, you're probably going to be driving. I suppose you could ride a bike in between, but it depends on the activity you want to do. If you need to carry equipment with you,
or have kids, and
they just seem just seem really spread out. So be prepared for that as well.
What I found awesome about the parks that we visited today was that there was just so many people out using them. And it might be because it's really one of the first nice days that we've had in Michigan. As you can see that there's no snow. It's about 65 degrees today. If you've been following along with the videos, you know we've been averaging about 6 degrees for most of the times that we've been out with a lot of snow. And so the snow is finally gone. The buds are starting to be out in the trees. And so there's just been a ton of people out. And I guess with, you know, the Southeast Michigan area, there's just a lot more population in general. So there's going to be a lot more people out in these areas, out on the biking trails, hiking. A lot of people paddleboarding today, actually. I saw a couple different groups doing that, having some picnics, people just out for their walking their dogs or out for a stroll. And so it's great to see that these parks are actually getting used.
Well, and we've also discovered as part of this project that there are a lot of great places throughout Michigan. I think I even started, you know, when we started this project, I was thinking a lot of state parks, we'd be going up north, we'd be going to the Upper Peninsula, and I grew up in Southeast Michigan in Oakland County, and so I'm used to sort of the population boom and the urban areas and stuff, and I didn't think about state parks being down here, but you discovered 5 new state parks today for you, right? You haven't been to any of these before.
No, not at all. We, growing up in the Lansing area, it seemed like if we were going to go to a state park, we always went to the West Coast. mostly because my family are big beach people. So anytime that we can go to the beach and lay on the beach and get a suntan. So for us, it was Lake Michigan. Any state park we could go to on Lake Michigan. I don't think I'd ever been to any really of the recreation areas, and definitely not the ones in Southeast Michigan. So yeah, this was 5 new state parks for me and 5 places that I'm likely to come back to in the future now that I know that they're here. That a couple that I was kind of bummed that we only spent an hour or 2 at, because I thought, well, you could actually spend a lot of time here.
So this was a little different type of video, but we hope you still enjoyed it. Some of these parks that we're going to be able to spend more time at. We'll be able to camp and spend some days at. Others, we're just going to be able to kind of stop in and show you around a little bit and give you a taste of what they're like. But that's really what this project is about. It's about teasing you with, look at the 103 different places you could go in Michigan and enjoy yourself for a day, a weekend, a week. And hopefully this is one of those videos that's going to help you see that there's a lot of different options.
With 103 parks on the list, we knew that at some point we were going to have to combine them all into one. And that's a really bad way to start that.
Yeah. We're going to have to start combining some.
Not all of them.
You put them all into one.
We're going to put them all into one.
It's going to be a
one day.
3-hour documentary. We're going to be the new Ken Burns.